As I mentioned in an earlier video, it's really important to work on being a two-handed lacrosse player. That means being able to use your dominant hand to catch, throw, scoop, shoot, and dodge, and also being able to use your non-dominant hand to catch, throw, scoop, shoot, and dodge. In this video, we're going to show you how to switch hands smoothly, quickly, while keeping your stick protected to make sure that no one takes the ball away from you while you're switching, because switching hands is something that you are going to do very, very frequently in practices and in games. But before we get to switching how you switch hands, we're going to talk about using your non-dominant hand to play lacrosse. When you first get started, it's going to feel uncomfortable, it's going to feel weird, you're not going to like using your non-dominant hand. It's simply because we're not used to using our non-dominant hand for really much of anything. If you think about your daily activities, eating your breakfast, doing your homework, you're using your dominant hand for just about everything. So it makes sense that using our non-dominant hand to play a sport is going to feel a little bit awkward, but I promise you, stick with it. It only takes a couple of days, a couple of weeks to start getting more and more used to it and for it to start feeling more and more comfortable. And there's really nothing cooler than being able to step on a lacrosse field and knowing that you can score on somebody with your right hand and you can score on somebody with your left hand. With the players that we work with at Level Up, a kind of interesting thing happens after a couple of months of working with us. Some players kind of forget which hand is their dominant hand. And we'll say, use your dominant hand, and they'll have to think about it for a second to remember which one is their dominant hand, just because they get so used to using both. A lot of players, when they first start playing lacrosse, they get so frustrated trying to learn how to use their non-dominant hand that they just kind of give up and say, I'm just going to use my strong hand for everything. I really urge you to not fall into that trap. Even though it's tough, stick with it, especially in your practices, in your drills. You're going to get more and more used to it, and it's going to make you a very, very good lacrosse player. I had a coach who told me that if you only use one hand, if you only use your dominant hand, the best you can be is a 5 out of 10 lacrosse player, and a 5 out of 10 is failing. It's not until we switch hands and start working on our non-dominant hand that we can be a 7, 8, 9, or even 10 out of 10 lacrosse player, and that should be the goal for all of us. So how do we switch hands? During a game, during a practice, we're going to be switching from our left to our right and from our right to our left very frequently. How do we do it properly? So we're going to start in our regular lacrosse stance, one hand at the top of the stick, one hand at the bottom, keeping that stick in close to your body, in close to your ear. Now when we switch hands, we simply want to bring the stick to our chest or just in front of our chin. All right, slide our bottom hand up to the top, and then we're going to take our top hand and replace it on the bottom. For new lacrosse players, we have a silly little saying that we use. It goes ear, hold the stick next to your ear, face, bring the stick in front of your face, slide your bottom hand up to the top, and replace your top hand on the bottom. And that brings the stick over to the other side. You can use that saying when you first start learning how to switch hands, ear, face, slide, replace. But as you get more used to it, it's going to become a little bit quicker, and you're actually going to take your top hand, and instead of sliding the bottom hand up, you're actually going to take your top hand and kind of throw that stick down to your top hand and then bring it up on the other side. So it's a progression that goes from ear, face, slide, replace, to a much quicker throw the stick down, bring it up on the other side. Keeping it in close, the shaft of the stick is actually going down in between my legs or right to the outside of my leg, making sure that my stick is completely protected as I switch hands and no one can take it away. And you can practice this by doing just what I'm doing. Start out slow, ear, face, slide, replace. And as you get more used to it, you're just going to kind of throw that stick down and bring it back up on the other side, keeping it protected, making sure you don't drop the ball. Doing about 20 or 30 of these a day is going to make you really comfortable with switching hands, and you're not going to have to think about it in a practice or a game. You're just going to be able to smoothly switch without anyone being able to take that lacrosse ball away from you.